Scripture reading this morning will be in Matthew 9, verses 10 through 13. I'll be reading in the NIV. While Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" On hearing this, Jesus said, "It's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners."
It's about 750 years before this takes place with Matthew and Jesus. And actually, the verse preceding all of that was Jesus calling Matthew, rather, and asking him to become a disciple. And all of this takes place. 750 years before that, there is a prophet named Hosea. The word of the Lord comes to Hosea and says something kind of interesting, probably to any other prophet or any other character in the Bible specifically. He says, I want you to go and I want you to take a wife for yourself, but not just any woman. I want you to take, some versions will say unfaithful. Some will actually get down to the nitty-gritty and call it what it was. I want you to take a prostitute. I want you to take a harlot for a wife, somebody who you know is going to probably go down this path again. We don't know that he replies, but we do know that he complies, because he goes and he finds this woman, and a strange name for a woman, one that has kind of seeped into our society as kind of a dopey name. It's Gomer. Gomer is the name of this wife that he takes. And he has children with her. We won't pronounce all of the names of those children. They're not important for us this morning. They're important for Israel. And I encourage you to read all of the book of Hosea as you have a chance and find out what God is trying to say through this amazing analogy that he's developing through Hosea. He takes this wife in, but I don't know that we've ever thought, and maybe we're familiar with this story, with this historical account of what happened. But I don't know that we've ever thought, and in fact, I know that in the past I've thought, but it's been a long time since I've tried to put myself in the shoes of Gomer and not Hosea, and trying to think in terms of what it would be like to be that woman in that particular circumstance, to have somebody, to have a man of the Lord and come to me and say, "Man, I see who you are. I see what you have become," and not focusing on that. I want you to come and be a part of me. I want you to come and join in the most intimate of relationships with me, with Hosea. Whatever happens, she does. She bears him children, and they go and they develop this relationship, the most intimate of human relationships. And maybe it was because of her past, and maybe it was because of a sense of not feeling like she was ever going to live up to that standard. Maybe it was just too much of that Cinderella story, and we don't really know the exact circumstance behind why she does what she does, but she ends up going and returning back to that same lifestyle. Maybe even a worse one. Maybe she was accidentally sold into slavery because of a debt that she had. Maybe she just chose to go back because that's what she knew. And what does Hosea feel during that time? What does he experience? God uses this analogy to say, this is how I feel about you, Israel. I feel like you have done this to me. I feel like you have gone and you have harloted yourself out to other gods, to other things, to other sinful things that are just not of me. And there in chapter 3 of Hosea, God goes again to Hosea and says something that is probably devastating, and is almost probably devastating for all of us to hear and to think about being in his shoes or even being in Gomer's shoes, because he says, I want you to go and I want you to buy her back. Now we know this story from the perspective of God and from the perspective of us being that people that are set aside and God coming and ransoming us, but have we ever thought of what it really means? What it would have meant to Hosea, what it would have meant to Gomer to have somebody come to you and say, you know what, this is what I want you to do. And Hosea going and making that decision and making it plainly. He goes and he pays the slave price for this woman and buys her back. He ransoms her out of that lifestyle and brings her back into his own arms. And as we know, this is what God is saying about us. He said, well, to Israel, and we are Israel in this circumstance as well. This is what happened with you. This is what happened with me. Brothers and sisters, we are called, and we're going to be talking here in chapel, not just today, but throughout the coming chapel experiences, throughout the coming weeks, about having a particular heart of something, and different topics during those different times. But let me encourage you to think in terms of one thing, and that is having a heart of God, or understanding first what that heart of God is. And I believe with all of my being, and I think that this is a theme throughout all of the Old Testament especially, and we see it exemplified through Jesus in the New Testament, that theme is God created a people that he loved so dearly that he was willing to go to the nth degree always to buy them back and to ransom them back to his own. That we see that over and over and over again. And this is for Israel specifically with Hosea and Gomer, right? He's talking and saying, listen, you guys have gone this other direction. And I want to bring you back. And there's going to be pain and there's going to be suffering in that, but I want to buy you back. I want to bring you back into my own. But remember who Israel was supposed to be. They were supposed to be the light to all of the nations. They were supposed to be the ones that went and exemplified that heart of God to every single person. And as the new Israel, as the people of God, we are called to do the same thing. And that's why I had Chris read this passage this morning. Let's read it again. This is Jesus calling Matthew. In fact, let's start up a verse in verse 9 of chapter 9 of Matthew. It says, as Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. Follow me, he told him. And Matthew got up and followed him. While Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? On hearing this, Jesus said, it's not the healthy who need a doctor, but it's the sick. But go and learn what this means. And he quotes another 8th century prophet Micah here. He says, go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. For I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners. And let me encourage you to think in terms of this in its most simplified form. This is the heart of God. That statement from Micah. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. I'm going to leave that to you to unpack that for yourself a little bit this morning, but I think you know kind of where it's going. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. Why are you eating with the sinners, Jesus? Why are you eating with the scum of the earth? It's not the healthy people that need a doctor, it's the sick. I didn't come to save those who think that they're righteous. I came to save the ones that know that they're not. Brothers and sisters, what the world needs is to understand the heart of God. What we need is to understand the heart of God. Because we need to live the heart of God. We need to be the ones that show that to the world. What they need to understand is there is a God and that there is a people that love them and that desires for them to be reconciled to God, that desires for them to be redeemed, desires for them to come home and to call him home like we have. So as we go through these next weeks, I encourage you to grasp on to this concept. And I know it's not a new concept for any of us, but until we get this, all of the other developments of our heart, they are nigh to worthless if we don't get this basic one. Understanding who God is at his heart level. My prayer for you today is for all of us, for me today, is to grasp that just a little bit more, to let that sink in to the depths of our being, to begin to live that. May you all have a blessed day.